Folks, welcome back to Talking Racine. And once again, we have a full complement of panelists. We have Mr. Ken Lumpkin over here on my far left. Immediately to my left is Mr. George Myers.
Howdy.
Mr. Jim Spodek, our producer, and I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen, your host. And this is, I guess we're going to call this, what, the free speech episode?
I guess so.
Probably as good a title as anything.
Look out, folks.
And the reason that we're discussing this tonight is because just this past week was the week when Mr. John Valco down at the Reef Point Brew House down in Racine's Marina posted a pretty nasty message on Facebook. And somebody notified somebody, and it ended up getting into the press, into the Milwaukee press. I think it made all three TV stations. Mm-hmm. I got communications personally myself from as far away as Canada, Alberta, Canada, from people who were wondering what the heck is going on down in Racine. So I don't know how many of you have seen it. I think a lot. If you haven't, you're one of the few that hasn't. And I don't know. Do we want to?
Yeah, I can do a quick clip and bring everybody up to date. Just a quick news article.
I mean, we're going to actually show the actual post.
It's a beauty. Hang on.
Yep.
Folks.
Okay.
If you haven't heard it.
Yeah.
One Facebook post has landed this Racine restaurant in the middle of a firestorm. A post suggesting NFL players who take a knee should be killed. In a since deleted Facebook post, Reef Point Brewhouse co-owner John Valco posted, "Kill the idiot players, execute them. They're nothing but garbage. The league is screwed up if they think it is their right. It's their duty to respect our country and our flag. They should go kneel in front of a freight train. Shame on these stupid misfits of society. They need to die." What was your first reaction?
What is he doing now? What the hell is he thinking?
Valco's business partners are distancing themselves from his comments.
When you say comments that are, calling for shooting or execution or anything, that's not okay in anybody's book, and it just makes me sick.
Meanwhile, scores of negative comments have rained down on the business.
Kind of a shame that people all over the world are just ready to throw the book at us, and they don't even know who we are.
You've reached the office of John Valco.
We tried to talk with Valco, but no one answered at his home or office, and his partners say they haven't spoken with him. Can you see him being associated with this business moving forward?
No, I don't.
Wow. Now that's. I think we've gone beyond the bounds of good taste, and what else have we exceeded there? Probably some people's constitutional rights. I mean, that's kind of an infringement. When you're talking about killing people, isn't that technically a violation of people's civil rights?
Yeah, I think it could be considered that.
Yeah.
As much as I didn't like the president, his narrative, his conversation of how he described what should happen to the athletes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is really, I think, out of bounds. And when I was on the county board, I know that property had some connection with the county. And I hope, Donnie Snow, QA Sakura, the Jackson supervisor, I hope they have some initiative. If they see this, I'm going to make sure I email them a copy, but I hope they make some move to find out, is the county responsible for that property in some kind of way.
Yeah.
I never thought of that.
Well, the co-owners of that business are quickly distancing themselves from Mr. Valco, and I think it's apparent that he's got some issues. I mean, this is.
Well, I don't see anything rational about that particular statement. When we talk about executing people, it's under the most serious circumstances, and some states don't even allow it. But even those states that do allow it, it has to be a pretty bad mutilation of some sort, of something, before you go that far.
Right.
So to take this totally literally I don't think is particularly rational either, because it wasn't a rational statement. That's simple. You don't do that type of thing because somebody kneels at a sports game. I mean, we don't even do that thing after they've chopped somebody up in some states.
Yeah, this is
really done something,
silent
really
protest
something bad.
is what they were registering.
Right. But I think if we just can tone it down a little bit and say, do they have a right to protest?
Right.
And so let's get off the irrational part of it about, are we going to kill them if they do? That's obviously not the case. It's not even rational to consider it to be a sensible action.
Unfortunately, George, when this kind of language is allowed to continue unaddressed, it has a tendency to multiply itself, build on itself. Other people who may be thinking these ways feel empowered to share their opinions. And, before you know it, somebody could act out on this.
No, we've just addressed it. I've just addressed it. Let's put it that way.
Oh, you've taken care of it?
Well, yeah, I've taken care of it. It's irrational, it's illogical, it's stupid. But now the question is do they have a right to protest?
Right.
Yeah, that's the issue that we're trying to get to.
I would say yes, they obviously have a right to protest. You can protest any way you want in this country as long as you're not doing some type of harm on somebody else. You can't say, well, I don't like what you just said, and stab them.
Now, when you say they have a right to protest, you're talking about the athletes.
The athletes.
Yeah.
And no one can come up and say that, no one can. We have an absolute right to say what we want to say in the United States. Just about absolutely.
Yeah, we'd all be in jail.
Yeah, but the thing is somebody does not have cannot go up and stab a person and kill them and say, well, you don't have that right, and kill them for it. You obviously can't do that. But the question is, do they have that right? Yes, they have the right to do that. But does the NFL have the right to say, no, you must stand in this? That's part of the job. If you want to be an NFL player, you must go to the stands beforehand, have your helmet under a certain position, and you must stand at attention.
Well, you're assuming that's part of the collective bargaining agreement.
All I'm saying is, if it
was
part of the collective bargaining agreement, then the NFL would have the right to enforce that, because that's been written into it. Is the mode of conduct that's going to just like they can't wear whatever they want on the field.
Right.
You have an absolute right
No,
to dress what you want on the field, but at the same time, they can't go put any darn thing they want to on their
Is it constitutional to put that
helmet.
into a policy of your employment that you have to stand for the national anthem? I mean, is that constitutional?
If they want to do that, is that constitutional to do that? I would say they have the right to do that. Let's put it in my house. Let's suppose I said, if you want to come to my house, before you come in, you must dress that flag, say the Pledge of Allegiance, then you come into the house. I have a right to do that, and people have the right to not come and visit me then if they don't want to do that. See, so you have the alternate right, and the players have a right to say, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to play. Because it is the owner's game. The owners still own that game. The players are players. The owners own the league.
There would be no game without
I think you guys are stretching this, because
there would be no league without the owners either, unless the players are ready to establish
that's why it's called collective bargaining.
Only thing I'm looking at the fact now. I heard on yesterday on the news that the basketball NBA is going to be making that. I mean, that got to be a rule. If you're in the NBA, you're going to have to stand. If you already have a contract, and it's not written into your collective bargaining, as you mentioned, I just can't see where, because this has become a social issue, that people can now start making you stand for the...
Yeah, I got a problem with the whole thing with this protest. I mean, if you don't have that right to protest, and if we go back far enough, remember when the Olympics, wasn't there somebody that stood there or wouldn't stand? Or
Juan Carlos and Smith was the other guy?
I mean, it's a statement. There's been a lot of statements throughout history. I mean, that said, hey, I'm protesting this because of the inequities.
That's how this country started.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with these guys kneeling.
Taxation by the King of England.
Exactly. I mean, this is our history. So we come in here and I watch some of this stuff on. As a matter of fact, there's a couple clips and they were actually in Green Bay, and I'm going to just play a little clip. But they were in Green Bay, and they were talking that, I wouldn't, they should fire them, they should do these different things. And I'm thinking to myself, and one guy was from the military, and I'm thinking, this is kind of what you're fighting for. Is the fact that you can protest, that you do have those rights. Sometimes it's not pretty.
I think.
When did it become a tradition that the national anthem was played at sporting events?
Well, that's another one.
And why just sporting events? Why not a theatrical performance? Why not a lot of other things? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hamilton was one example that Bob Costas used. And he
Right.
gave a very good discussion on the topic, if you haven't seen it.
But, you
Google
know, buried in our minds, and I think we need to bring it forward, is the fact look at what was said to make this an issue. I mean, I would never have believed that I would live, or my kids would live, to a time where you'll hear the President of the United States use language touching women in their, I think the term he used was crouch, you know.
No, that's not the term he used, but that's what he was referring to, yeah.
Okay. Calling people SOBs, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, this is the...
Yeah, it's definitely got raw. I mean, there's not, but
Well, he has a constitutional right to speak too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not just say you become president. There's nothing in that contract that says now he has to behave like a certain way
Right.
any more than the NFL players. Once they put their uniform on, they have
But
to
here's
behave
the
a
other
certain
thing.
way.
But that, excuse me, let me just...
let's
let me
just
just
be careful where we're
But
putting
that's what
these-
lead to individuals that own companies that the public is welcome to come in to use language like the clip we just saw.
I'm not sure that he would have said that had he not seen the president talk the way that he does, and other people talk the way that they
Well,
do.
there's
I
a
mean,
possibility. But here, maybe we move the issue.
I think that's carrying a little bit far.
Well, no, it's not. It's not.
Okay. Because you can say that about anything, any person. It's any of these
Yeah.
Hollywood actors that get up and say the things that they say. Look at these Hollywood actors that threaten the president's life. Now all of a sudden that's okay, but the president can't call somebody
Right.
SOB
But you know
because that's
what?
have to lead to somebody killing somebody.
What if?
Come on.
No,
you know,
that's not what
I
I'm
think
saying
that
at all.
I think the
That's not what I'm
discussion
saying
has
at
been
all. Sounds like
moved
you're saying it.
to the NFL,
Well,
but I
think
don't
you're
think that
hearing
was
through
the
John
original.
Steers.
I don't believe that was the original concept of kneeling. I believe it was because the young black players were protesting the fact that they felt that their young brothers were being shot by officers, and I think that is really the beginning of this. And I think they've made this into maybe more of an issue with the NFL and the players and what have you, because a few of them protested that. But I think that's where it actually started from.
Well, yes, it did, and it was Colin Kaepernick who was
Right.
the lead actor in that, and you know I'm perfectly fine with it. He just said I'm going to kneel down when you're playing the national anthem because of what is going on in this country. It's not that I disrespect the country; it's that I'm upset by certain things that are allowed to happen here, and by kneeling down, I want to bring attention to them.
And maybe we should all just kind of look at some of this stuff a little bit and say, what is the process? Because you remember Kent State, the Vietnam War, and we got to the point where, you know, kids were protesting. We're talking college kids, and we ended up with the National Guard opening fire and killing 3-4 of them.
Right.
And how far does it have to go, you know, without having to say, you know, maybe, and I remember that was kind of a turning point at that Vietnam War and that protest, that all of a sudden was we're shooting our own kids on campus. I mean, do we have to go to this point where we have to have this huge argument? Maybe we should just kind of look at the subject, a protest, and say, all right, are we? Is it you know? Is there a problem here?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's time we start to look at some of the issues.
I don't really. The reason I'm not too concerned about a reenaction of Kent State is because we're not seeing a reenaction of what like Roosevelt did with the Japanese and turning them because they were Japanese.
Right.
All right. So we've had things like that happen. I just don't for a minute believe, I might be wrong, that any president could get away with that with any group of people again. We've advanced from that stage where we just simply don't allow a president to intern a people because of their nationality or race or whatever it is. They can't.
How about disallowing them from coming into the country
Well,
specifically?
no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about putting them in jail.
Velcro did now.
But if they come, and he said they weren't supposed to come, then he'll put them in jail.
Roosevelt put everybody in jail that was Japanese.
Right. Well, they did that turn of the century. They called them Huns when the Germans were here.
Well,
I mean, we've
whether
done that.
whether they were illegal residents or not, and they were.
What is the
those were
motivation,
Americans.
though? I'm speaking to the
Well,
motivation.
I'm just saying that we're talking about yes. we're dealing with this idea of protest at a little different level now. Thankfully, it's a little higher level. We're looking at it and saying, do they have a rational? Can they protest? And I would say absolutely do. I don't think there's any question about it. I think the owners, if they want to, can put it into an agreement either before or after the fact. If the basketball players the owners want to get it into the agreement, they have a perfectly right to do that.
No. No. That violates the very concept of an agreement.
No,
what do you mean?
Both
put
sides,
it into the agreement.
No, both sides have to. If they want to put it in there and get the players
but
to
you
agree.
Said the owners.
Not unilaterally. I'm sorry. I don't mean to say that you can unilaterally, but they can get it into the agreement, suggest a new one, and say if we want to have a new agreement, we're going to make this part of it, and then it's up to them to negotiate whether they do it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But they have a right to renegotiate the agreement. Let's put it that way. They have a right to renegotiate the agreement, so they have to stand up for the national anthem. And at that point, it becomes part of the job. And now, if you want to play in the NBA and you want to play at that particular game, you must stand up beforehand and do that. That's the agreement. Mm-hmm. That's the agreed.
Is that really how we want patriotism to be?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying they have a right to do that.
I'm just asking.
Well, do we want to?
I'm glad you reacted that way, George.
Then that's going to be a decision that the owners have to make.
And that's
the owners are already facing an extreme falling in attendance at the games, at the NFL games. There's an extreme drop in people that are watching the game. I talked to one person when I was out canvassing. It was on a mayoral thing, and he originated to me, I am no longer watching Packer games. All right, that is his right to do that, folks. Yeah. Just like the Packers have a right to kneel, and the fans have a right to not go to the games and quit watching the games. It's a real simple, peaceable solution to it. Quit, and I respect the guy because he is standing up for what he believes. He feels that this is a disrespect to the country and a disrespect to the men and women who have died for this country so that you could kneel. And he believes that at least you should show the respect to that flag and do that. And I totally respect him for having that viewpoint, and he is allowed to have that viewpoint, just like the players are allowed to have the viewpoint. I'm not disrespecting the country. I'm only protesting what was going on in Missouri. Well, he doesn't look at it that way, and a lot of people don't look at it that way.
You're pretty excited about this.
I love it. That's why I'm on this program, because once in a while, you ask my opinion, I'm giving my opinion.
I'm not trying to slight you guys, though, but I think I'm probably the only vet here. And I was in service doing.
Oh, no, George was a vet.
George, you a vet too?
I was 101st Airborne Division. Okay. I was a machine gunner in Vietnam.
But I don't think.
I have been there.
Wait a minute. We got a little bit more cred on this part of the table. Right. You were where in Germany? Yeah. Vietnam era though, right?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, and George might can agree or disagree. I don't think I joined. I wouldn't believe that George join the service in order that we, would be able to pledge the allegiance to the flag or either stand to the national anthem. That's not why we went in service, And if we honest about it.
No, you're right. No, I didn't.
I went in because I had a generation in my family that served. And it was kind of instilled in me. Mm-hmm. And I had others that went in that didn't want to go in. They was drafted. So we went in for different reasons. I think people are kind of pushing on this, I went to service. I went overseas and fought, for this country. And so I'm upset when if people don't stand for the national, I think that's their prerogative, and I think half of them don't be standing. They be walking around, going to the concession stand.
Buying beer.
Now, today they are quite patriotic, but to me, I'm just throwing this out here. I definitely want to hear what George said. I believe it was an alternative motive for the president to bring this up. I've looked at he have had issues with foreigners, Hispanics. He have had them with Muslims, but he hadn't really had an issue with African Americans that was from a negative perspective. And for him to bring this up brought enlightenment to things that people hadn't paid no attention to. 78% of the NBA or NFL, I think it's the NFL, is African American. The NBA have a high population. He didn't bring it up about what was happening. I mean, this has been going on. Kaepernick been doing this even during the Obama administration. Mm-hmm. Nothing was said.
Well, there was an interesting remark that I read on Facebook where somebody was talking about these whiny millionaire athletes and how, they should go back to their community and do some good. And now, ironically, Kaepernick has raised and donated personally as well millions of dollars back to communities in need. So, I mean, he's not just out there protesting; he's walking the walk.
And I think some of people have brought that up, is that is really the proper place to be protesting, is get down into the communities and work there.
Right.
That's one of the arguments against the kneeling, is saying it's the wrong venue. What are you doing this on national TV during the national anthem?
Yeah, but
go down to the communities and do it. Now, I'm not saying
right.
which is right and which is wrong. I'm just saying that is what you bring down, and
it's
great
both.
that he's doing that. He is at least doing that down there also. Yeah.
Yeah, but you remember go back enough. Remember back when the gay population was, we had AIDS, and there was a huge epidemic, and there was a lot of lives lost, and it was really kind of just close our eyes to it. And they had ACT UP. And I remember ACT UP because they went through and they would bust up TV stations. They would come into a studio and, kind of come into the news because there was no internet, there was nothing there. So that's how they protested. But you know what they did do? They were able to, all of a sudden, all kinds of money went into aid testing to find out what was the, cause of AIDS. And, not that it's been eradicated, but it's certainly, there was an awful lot of attention now paid to it. And that was through protest. And the only way they could really protest at that time was to go into a national setting. And I think that's what these players are in the National Football League and the rest are. And that's their venue to be able to protest.
But Trump have turned this issue away from what it originally
I agree.
was
I
for.
agree. Well, I think you've heard the thing where he's pissed off at the NFL because of him being sued by the NFL and losing in that American Football League or whatever.
Oh,
so
yeah,
there's a whole
yeah.
thing there. I don't want to get into it.
USFL, I think it was.
Something.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many facets to that guy. Sometimes you can't keep track of it all. But the fact is, I think the idea of protest, and I know it's caused a lot of controversy, but man, you need to be able to protest, and I think it's very, very important.
Well, and if it upsets somebody,
That's the reason to protest.
yeah, exactly.
That's why we're doing it.
I mean, I'm an old guy, so I'm from the civil rights movement, and I look at some of the things that we marched and demonstrated and actually went against the law. I mean, we wouldn't be drinking out of fountains. We wouldn't be able to, sit at anywhere on the bus.
Yeah, but
it's all kinds of things that if we have been quiet, like people are saying publicly, they shouldn't be demonstrating like that.
Mm-hmm.
Would never occur.
It does make change.
It brings about change.
It does.
That's why we protest. We protested against the wall being up in Berlin. That's why finally, it took a long time, but it was brought down. America, we protesting what the Rocket Man is doing in Korea.
Okay. I was going to say, who's the Rocket Man? You're talking about
Well, one thing I would throw in on these protests is a lot of times the people themselves are ready for a change long before the laws change that allow people to behave they want to. When I was in the service in the United States, before we got shipped to Vietnam, we got leave to go to Georgia, and I walked in on the wrong side of a bar. I didn't think anything of it, I'm just sitting there, and I ordered a beer, and the bartender comes over me in a real strong Southern drawl. I couldn't understand what he said. He finally got it across to me, though. I have to go out to the white side of the bar because I was sitting on the black side of the bar. And then I looked around and oh yeah, there's all black guys here. So I had to go out the door, go down the street a little ways, come in the other door, and get on the white side of the bar, and then I could serve the beer. Now, I didn't mind getting served there. I was ready.
Yeah.
I'm just a Yankee, damn Yankee. But the law did not allow him to serve me there. He would lose his license if he served me on that side of the bar. So I had to go around to the other side to get served. So all I'm pointing at is that a lot of times it's these laws that are set up that are forcing some type of inequity or something like that should be protested. Kaepernick wasn't protesting that, remember. He was protesting not a law, but an individual action. It was a result of a court action where some police officers who were, no cop you can find any place that agrees what these police officers did, shooting black kids, and then they got off on it, less than murder. So he was protesting an actual.
What do you mean you can't find anybody that agrees to it?
Police officers. You read what the police officers say. They uniformly condemn it, Ken. Yeah, there might be one someplace that's keeping his mouth shut, but uniformly they have condemned that action by.
But there have been several actions.
Well, the point is that there was no law that protected those police officers. That was an individual thing, and I would just like to bring that out. Is that point out is that a lot of times what these outrageous things that we see with the going on in the schools and with slavery and all that type of stuff, those were instituted laws by government from above that had to keep those things in place, where people were ready to change before that and change their ways, but they couldn't because the laws prevented them from doing it. And that's what needs to be protested. That's what Martin Luther King was protesting. He was protesting the laws that kept these things in place instead of letting people do what they wanted to do. Because people are basically good, and they will eventually come around to the right decision if allowed to do that. That's my belief in it.
Boy, you're keeping it all in. It must be going to explode any moment.
You're talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
I can feel it. It's like a vibe over there.
Yeah, there was a lot more than laws that were being protested. Protest was about the mood of the country. It was about the demeanor of a large part of the population. The fact that people would turn the other way, they'd look the other way when these things happen, like you did. And I'm not faulting you for that, because you're one guy and you're all by yourself there. But a lot of people just allowed that to happen. They just accepted it. And the protest was, we should not be accepting this. These laws do not belong on the books, and these behaviors do not belong on the books. And we need to change the hearts and the minds of the population in order to get these laws removed.
Well, all I'm saying is that things would change a lot more quickly if the laws were removed, because people begin to find out very quickly that they're silly laws. I couldn't.
Well, it's a way to separate, too. Some of the stuff is a way to separate people and then create this chaos. And I think that if you take a lot of that away, people the human spirit will work together to better all.
Yes.
And I really believe that.
Yeah, communication does that. As people get to know each other, they find out, oh, wait a minute, this guy isn't. So what if he's Japanese? I can still talk to him. He's a person. Oh my goodness! I thought Japanese were evil.
Right.
Japanese are fine.
Of course.
But how do you bring? I'm wondering, and what I'm concerned with now, and I've seen a lot. How do you bring people together? We agree that it's a problem with the races and the groups of people and all of that. So how can you bring them together with the attitude? And I'm gonna have to bring the president in again, that he's created almost a atmosphere of separation, of people not being able to come together. Would you agree?
I haven't noticed. I have not observed that.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know quite.
I've noticed
I put in the argument.
I got to admit, I noticed somebody else.
Are you guys Democrats or something?
But you know what? Go back. If you ever want to do something, go back and look at John F. Kennedy when he speaks and how he, and then look at
good
Trump.
Democrat.
Yeah, well, a Democrat. I'm not I don't like anybody. You can't get me tied into any of it. But I just think there is, and there is something to that when you have the president of the United States. There is a certain amount of following that goes on with that. A certain tone is set, and I think that's also important. But I think people just need to really go out and meet their neighbor. Get out and get involved in the community, and I think you're going to find
that does an awful lot.
Yeah, and communicate.
Communication is the universal solvent.
Right. Exactly.
And you just get out there and talk with people, you find out, hey, this is a person here. This is, and you get past the slanted eyes or the dark skin or the light skin or whatever
a lot
it is,
of that
the
is
gray
media
hair.
puts a lot of that out. They want to sensationalize a lot of things.
Yeah, well, fear is a tool for population control. I mean, it has a great influence on how society behaves.
Yeah.
Well, bringing up those emails is probably going to take us into a little bit different direction. And the emails he's talking about are emails that were circulated within city government here in Racine. And I think this is a topic that we ought to explore in greater depth.
I agree.
At a future time, maybe bring in another guest.
Is this a teaser or something that you're doing for this?
Yeah, this is population control.
Little teaser here, folks.
Get him to come back and watch.
Wait till next week.
Well, we've pretty much we've run the gamut pretty much on this topic right here, and we've hit our time limit that we've kind of self-imposed. So, with that, come back and see us again. Say good night, fellas, or good afternoon.
Good night, folks. Good luck.
Have a nice day, because you're probably watching this in the morning. So,
and the good Lord keep a watch over you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We'll see you again soon. Faulting you for that, because you're one guy and you're all by yourself there, but a lot of people just allowed that to happen. They just accepted it, and the protest was, we should not be accepting this. These laws do not belong on the books, and these behaviors do not belong on the books, and we need to change the hearts and the minds of the population in order to get these laws removed.
Well, all I'm saying is that things would change a lot more quickly if the laws were removed, because people begin to find out very quickly that they're silly laws. I couldn't.
Well, it's a way to separate, too. Some of the stuff is a way to separate people and then create this chaos. And I think that if you take a lot of that away, people the human spirit will work together to better all.
Yes.
And I really believe that.
Yeah, communication does that. As people get to know each other, they find out, oh, wait a minute, this guy isn't. So what if he's Japanese? I can still talk to him. He's a person. Oh my goodness! I thought Japanese were evil.
Right.
And I thought, Japanese are fine.
Of course.
But how do you bring? I'm wondering, and what I'm concerned with now, and I've seen a lot. How do you bring people together? We agree that it's a problem with the races and the groups of people and all of that. So how can you bring them together with the attitude? And I'm gonna have to bring the president in again, that he's created almost a atmosphere of separation, of people not being able to come together. Would you agree?
I haven't noticed. I have not observed that.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know quite.
I've noticed
I've put in the argument.
I got to admit, I noticed somebody else.
Are you guys Democrats or something?
But you know what? Go back. If you ever do something, go back and look at John F. Kennedy when he speaks and how he, and then look at
good
Trump.
Democrat.
Yeah, well, a Democrat. I'm not I don't like anybody. You can't get me tied into any of it. But I just think there is, and there is something to that when you have the president of the United States. There is a certain amount of following that goes on with that. A certain tone is set, and I think that's also important. But I think people just need to really go out and meet their neighbor. Get out and get involved in the community, and I think you're going to find
that does an awful lot.
Yeah, and communicate.
Communication is the universal solvent.
Right. Exactly.
And you just get out there and talk with people, you find out, hey, this is a person here.
Right.
This is, you know, and
Right.
you get past the slanted eyes or the dark skin or the light skin
Yeah,
or
and you know,
whatever
and a lot of
it is,
that
you know, the
is
gray
media
hair.
puts a lot of that out. They want to
Who's that old white
sensationalize
guy?
a lot of things.
Yeah, well, fear is a tool for population control. I mean, it
is.
has a great influence on how.
Can't do that. But the question is, do they have that right? Yes, they have the right to do that. But does the NFL have the right to say, no, you must stand in this? That's part of the job. If you want to be an NFL player, you must go to the stands beforehand, have your helmet under a certain position, and you must stand at attention.
Well, you're assuming that's part of the collective bargaining agreement.
All I'm
and
saying
not
is,
at all
if
convinced
it
that
was part of the collective bargaining agreement, then the NFL would have the right to enforce that, because that's been written into it. Is the mode of
policy,
conduct
right.
that's going to just like they can't wear whatever they want on the field.
Right.
You have
I
an
don't think it's
absolute
fair.
right
No,
to dress
that's a
what you
little
want
bit
on the
different.
field,
That's a little
but
bit
at the same time they can't go put any darn thing they want to on their
Is it
uniform
constitutional
or
to
on
put
their
that
helmet.
into a policy of your employment that you have to stand for the national anthem? I mean, is that
If they
constitutional?
want to do that, is that constitutional
Yeah.
to do that? I would say they have the right to do that. Let's put it in my house. Let's suppose I said, if you want to come to my house, before you come in, you must dress that flag, say the Pledge of Allegiance, then you come into the house. I have a right to do that, and people have the right to not come and visit me then if
Right,
they don't want to do
right.
that. See, so you have the alternate right, and the players have a right to say, I don't want to do that.
Right.
I'm not going to play. Because it is the owner's game. The owners still own that game. The players are players. The owners own the
there
league.
would be no game without
I think you
players.
guys are stretching this because
There would be no league
Yeah.
without the owners either, unless the players are ready to establish
That's
one
why
of
it's
their
called
own.
Go
a
ahead, what do you got?
collective
Go
bargaining
with this,
agreement.
only thing I'm looking at the fact now. I heard on yesterday on the news that the basketball NBA are going to be making that. I mean, that got to be a rule. If you're in the NBA, you're going to have to stand. If you already have a contract, and it's not written into your collective bargaining, as you mentioned, I just can't see where, because this has become a social issue, that people can now start making you stand for the.
Yeah, I got a problem
You know-
with the whole thing with this protest. I mean, if you don't have that right to protest, and if we go back far enough, remember when the Olympics, wasn't there somebody that stood there or
Yeah.
wouldn't stand? Or
Juan Carlos and
Yeah.
was it
yeah.
Smith was
So,
the other guy.
I mean, it's a statement.
with their-
I mean,
Yeah.
there's been a lot of statements throughout history. I mean, that said, hey, I'm protesting this because of the inequities.
That's how this country started.
Exactly. So I mean, I don't have a problem with these guys
Protesting
kneeling.
taxation by the King of England.
Exactly. I mean, this is our history.
Yeah.
So we come in here and I watch some of this stuff on. As a matter of fact, there's a couple clips and they were actually in Green Bay, and I'm gonna just.
When we talk about executing people, it's under the most serious circumstances, and some states don't even allow it. But even those states that do allow it, it has to be a pretty bad mutilation of some sort, of something, before you go that far.
Right.
So to take this totally literally I don't think is particularly rational either, because it wasn't a rational statement. That's simple. You don't do that type of thing because
Right.
somebody kneels at a sports game. I mean, we
Okay.
don't even do that thing after they've chopped somebody up in
Then
some
there's-
states,
yeah,
you
this
know,
is
and
in
really
a
done something,
silent
really something
protest is
bad.
what they were registering.
Right,
and he's-
right. But I think if we just can tone it down a little bit and say, do they have a right to protest?
Right, they're right on
you know,
that.
and so let's get off the irrational part of it about, well, are we going to kill them if they do? That's obviously not the case. It's not even rational to consider it to be a sensible action.
Unfortunately, George, when this kind of language is allowed to continue unaddressed, it has a tendency to multiply itself, build on itself. Other people who may be thinking these ways feel empowered to share their opinions. And, before you know it, somebody could act out on this.
No, we've just addressed it. I've just addressed it. Let's put
Yeah.
it that way.
Oh, you've taken care of it?
Well, yeah, I've taken care of it. It's irrational, it's illogical, it's stupid. But now the question is do they have a right to protest?
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's the issue that we're trying to
I
get
would
to.
say yes, they obviously have a right to protest. You can protest any way you want in this country as long as you're not doing some type of harm on somebody else. You can't say, well, I don't like what you just said, and stab them.
Now, when
Right.
you say they have a
You-
right to protest, you're talking about the athletes.
The athletes.
Yeah.
And no one can come up and say that, no one can. We have an absolute right to say what we want to say in the United States. Just about
Yeah,
absolutely.
we'd all be in jail.
Yeah, but the thing is somebody does not have cannot go up and stab a person and kill them and say, well, you don't have that right, and kill them for it. You obviously can't do that. But the question is, do they have that right? Yes, they have the right to do that. But does the NFL have the right to say, no, you must stand in this? That's part of the job. If you want to be an NFL player, you must go to the stands beforehand, have your helmet under a certain position, and you must stand at attention.
Well, you're assuming that's part of the collective bargaining agreement.
All I'm
and
saying
not
is,
at all
if
convinced
it
that
was part of the collective bargaining agreement, then the NFL would have the right to enforce that, because that's been written into it. Is the mode of
policy,
conduct
right.
that's going to just like they can't wear whatever they want on the field.
Right.
You have
I
an
don't think it's
absolute
fair.
right
No,
to
that's
dress
a
what you
little
want
bit
on the
different.
field,
That's a little
but
bit
at the same time they can't go put any darn thing they want to on their. They put their uniform on. They have
But
to
here's
behave
the
a
other
certain
thing.
way.
But that, excuse me, let me just
let's
go ahead.
just be careful where we're
But
putting
that's what
these-
lead to individuals that own companies that the public is welcome to come in to use language like the clip we just saw.
I'm not sure that he would have said that had he not seen the president talk the way that he does, and other people talk the way that they
Well,
do.
there's a possibility. But here, maybe we move the issue.
I think that's carrying a little bit far.
Well, no, it's not. It's not.
Okay. Because you can say that about anything, any person. It's one of these
Yeah.
Hollywood actors that get up and say the things that they say. Look at these Hollywood actors that threaten the president's life. Now all of a sudden that's okay, but the president can't call somebody
Right.
SOB
But you know
because that's
what?
have to lead to somebody killing somebody.
What if?
Come on.
No,
you
no,
know,
that's not what
I
I'm
think
saying
that
at all.
I think the
That's not what I'm
discussion
saying
has
at all.
been
Sounds like
moved
you're saying it.
to the NFL,
Well,
but I
think
don't
you're
think that
turning
was
through
the
jaundiced
original.
ears.
I don't believe that was the original concept of kneeling. I believe it was because the young black players were protesting the fact that they felt that their young brothers were being shot by officers, and I think that is really the beginning of this. And I think they've made this into maybe more of an issue with the NFL and the players and what have you, because a few of them protested that. But I think that's where it actually started from.
Well, yes, it did, and it was Colin Kaepernick who was
Right.
the lead actor in that. And you know, I'm perfectly fine with it. He just said, I'm going to kneel down when you're playing the national anthem, because of what is going on in this country. It's not that I disrespect the country, it's that I'm upset by certain things that are allowed to happen here. And by kneeling down, I want to bring attention to them.
And maybe we should all just kind of look at some of this stuff a little bit and say, what is the protest? Because you remember Kent State, Vietnam War, and we got to the point where, you know, kids were protesting. We're talking college kids, and we ended up with the National Guard opening fire and killing 3-4 of them.
Right.
And how far does it have to go, you know, without having to say, you know, maybe, and I remember that was kind of a turning point at that Vietnam War and that protest, that all of a sudden it was we're shooting our own kids on campus. I mean, do we have to go to this point where we have to have this huge argument? Maybe we should just kind of look at the subject, a protest, and say, all right, are we, is it, you know, is there a problem here?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's time we start to look at some of the issues.
I don't really. The reason I'm not too concerned about a reenaction of Kent State is because we're not seeing a reenaction of what, like, Roosevelt did with the Japanese and turning them just because they were Japanese.
Right.
All right. So we've had things like that happen. I just don't for a minute believe, I might be wrong, that any president could get away with that with any group of people again.
I'm an old guy, so I'm from the civil rights movement. And I look at some of the things that we marched and demonstrated and actually went against the law. I mean, we wouldn't be drinking out of fountains. We wouldn't be able to, you know, sit anywhere on the bus.
Yeah, but
you know, it's all kinds of things that if we have been quiet, like people are saying publicly, they shouldn't be demonstrating like that.
Mm-hmm.
Would never occur.
It
You
does
know?
make change.
It brings about change.
It does.
That's why we protest. We protested against the wall being up in Berlin. That's why finally it took a long time, but it was brought down. America, we protest. We protesting what the Rocket Man is doing in Korea.
Okay. I was going to say, who's the Rocket Man? You're talking about
Well, one thing
Jim
I would throw in on these protests is a lot of times the people themselves are ready for a change long before the laws change
Right.
that allow people to behave they want to. When I was in the service in the United States, before we got shipped to Vietnam, we got leave to go to Georgia, and I walked in on the wrong side of a bar. I didn't think anything of it, you know. I'm just sitting there, and I ordered a beer, and the bartender comes over me in a real strong Southern drawl. I couldn't understand what he said. He finally got it across to me, though. I have to go out to the white side of the bar because I was sitting on the black side of the bar. And then I looked around and me, oh yeah, there's all black guys here. So I had to go out the door, go down the street a little ways, come in the other door, and get on the white side of the bar, and then he could serve the beer. Now, I didn't mind getting served there. I was ready.
Yeah.
I'm just a Yankee, you know, damn Yankee. But the law did not allow him to serve me there. He would lose his license if he served me on that side of the bar. So I had to go around to the other side to get served. So all I'm pointing at is that a lot of times it's these laws that are set up that are forcing some type of inequity or something like that should be protested. Kaepernick wasn't protesting that, remember. He was protesting not a law, but an individual action. It was a result of a court action where some police officers who were, you know, no cop you can find any place that agrees what these police officers did, shooting black kids, and then they got off on it,
Right.
less than murder. So he was protesting an actual
What do you mean you can't find anybody that
acting.
agrees to it? It's
police officers. You read what the police officers say. They uniformly condemn it, Ken. Yeah, there might be one someplace that's keeping his mouth shut, but uniformly they have condemned that action by.
But there have
the
been
shot.
several.
Like the term he used was crouch. You know,
No,
calling
that's
people,
not the term he used, but that's what he was referring to. Yeah.
calling people SOBs. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, this is the.
Yeah, it's definitely got raw. I mean, there's not, but
Well, he has a constitutional right to speak too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not just say you become president. There's nothing in that contract that says now he has to behave like a
Right.
certain way
Right.
any more than the NFL players. Once they put their uniform on, they have
But
to
here's
behave
the
a
other
certain
thing.
way.
But that, excuse me, let me just
let's
let me
just
just
be careful where we're
But
putting
that's what lead to individuals that own companies that the public is welcome to come in to use language like the clip we just saw.
I'm not sure that he would have said that had he not seen the president talk the way that he does, and other people talk the way that they
Well,
do.
there's
I mean,
a possibility. But here, maybe we move the issue.
I think that's carrying a little bit far.
Well, no, it's not. It's not.
Okay. Because you can say that about anything, any person. It's any of these
Yeah.
Hollywood actors that get up and say the things that they say. Look at these Hollywood actors that threaten the president's life. Now all of a sudden that's okay, but the president can't call somebody
Right.
SOB
But you know
because that's
what?
have to lead to somebody killing somebody.
What if?
Come on.
No,
you
no,
know,
that's not what
I
I'm
think
saying
that
at all.
I think the
That's not what I'm
discussion
saying
has
at all.
been
Sounds like
moved
you're saying it.
to the NFL,
Well,
but I
think
don't
you're
think that
hearing
was
through
the
jaundiced
original.
ears.
I don't believe that was the original concept of kneeling. I believe it was because the young black players were protesting the fact that they felt that their young brothers were being shot by officers, and I think that is really the beginning of this. And I think they've made this into maybe more of an issue with the NFL and the players and what have you, because a few of them protested that. But I think that's where it actually started from.
Well, yes, it did, and it was Colin Kaepernick who was
Right.
the lead actor in that, and you know I'm perfectly fine with it. He just said I'm going to kneel down when you're playing the national anthem because of what is going on in this country. It's not that I disrespect the country, it's that I'm upset by certain things that are allowed to happen here, and by kneeling down, I want to bring attention to them.
And maybe we should all just kind of look at some of this stuff a little bit and say, what is the process? Because you remember Kent State, Vietnam War, and we got to the point where, you know, kids were protesting. We're talking college kids, and we ended up with the National Guard opening fire and killing 3-4 of them.
Right.
And how far does it have to go? Without having to say, maybe. And I remember that was kind of a turning point at that Vietnam War and that protest. That all of a sudden was we're shooting our own kids on campus. I mean, do we have to go to this point where we have to have this huge argument? Maybe we should just kind of look at the subject, a protest, and say, all right, are we? Is it is there a problem here?
Yeah.
Today they are quite patriotic, but to me, I'm just throwing this out here. I definitely want to hear what George said. I believe it was an alternative motive for the president to bring this up. I've looked at he have had issues with foreigners, Hispanics. He have had them with Muslims, but he hadn't really had an issue with African Americans that was from a negative perspective. And for him to bring this up brought enlightenment to things that people hadn't paid no attention to. 78% of the NBA or NFL, I think it's the NFL, is African American. The NBA have a high population. He didn't bring it up about what was happening. I mean, this has been going on. Kaepernick been doing this even during the Obama administration.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was said.
Well, there was an interesting remark that I read on Facebook where somebody was talking about these whiny millionaire athletes and how, they should go back to their community and do some good. And now, ironically, Kaepernick has raised and donated personally as well millions of dollars back to communities in need. So, I mean, he's not just out there protesting; he's walking the walk.
And I think some of the people have brought that up is that is really the proper place to be protesting, is get down into the communities and work there.
Right.
That's one of the arguments against the kneeling, is saying it's the wrong venue. What are you doing this on national TV during the national anthem?
Yeah, but
go down to the communities and do it. Now, I'm not saying
Right.
which is right and which is wrong. I'm just saying that is what you bring down, and
He's
it's
doing
great
both.
that he's doing that. He is at least doing that down there also. Yeah.
Yeah, but you remember go back enough. Remember back when
But with
the gay population was, we had AIDS, and there was a huge epidemic, and there was a lot of lives lost, and it was really kind of just close our eyes to it, and they had ACT UP. And I remember ACT UP because they went through and they would bust up TV stations. They would come into a studio and kind of come into the news because there was no internet, there was nothing there. So that's how they protested. But you know what they did do? They were able to, all of a sudden, all kinds of money went into aid testing to find out what was the cause of AIDS, and not that it's been eradicated, but it's certainly, there was an awful lot of attention now paid to it, and that was through protest. And the only way they could really protest at that time was to go into a national setting. And I think that's what these players are in the National Football League and the rest are. And that's their venue to